Nintendo has amassed millions of fans from their recognizable franchises. Everyone knows who Mario is or has some relation to the Pokemon series, but what about those that many haven't seen before? Those that make an appearance in Smash Bros. That make you wonder who they are and how they got there. For instance, me at 9 years old playing Super Smash Bros. Brawl, wondering who Mr. Game & Watch was or who this kid with wings named Pit was. He was shown witnessing what was going on in the world, receiving a gift from this green-haired lady and then just dipping with it. See, Pit comes from the series of Kid Icarus, a series that has a tough beginning to it. Created by a one-man team, Nintendo had given Toru Osawa nothing more than a green light and a December deadline for his idea about a flightless angel's quest to find 3 sacred treasures and save the damsel in distress, Lady Palutena, or the lady with green hair. Countless days and nights of working alone while everyone else was out on vacation would result in Osawa only having running and shooting mechanics completed. This would soon turn around when Yoshio Sakamoto would lend the team behind Metroid to join Osawa and finish off his game. The December 19th deadline would quickly roll around, and the team was able to finish the game just 3 days before the release date, just without an ending credits scene. The game would release on December 19th, 1987 for the Japanese Famicom, and a year later in North America on the NES with an actual credits scene this time, and a few touch-ups to the graphics. 4 years later, on November 5th, 1991, Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters would release for the Game Boy, practically having a smooth release and receiving favorable reviews, except this one would only be released to North America and Europe. So, sorry Japan. Now, I probably wasn't even a thought in this world when the original Kid Icarus was released on the Famicom or the NES or even the Game Boy for that matter, but I was able to witness the amazing game that Kid Icarus Uprising was for the 3DS. Everything from the design of the game to the story to even the soundtrack is amazing. And it's all thanks to Masahiro Sakurai, the genius creator behind the Kirby and the Super Smash Bros. Series. After development on Super Smash Bros. Brawl was complete, Sakurai and Satoru Iwata, Nintendo's president at the time, would go out for a meal in which Iwata would reveal to Sakurai that Nintendo's glorious new console, the 3DS, was in the works, and that he wanted Sakurai to develop a launch title for this upcoming system. Sakurai wanted a game that would greatly benefit from the use of the 3DS's capabilities, and decided on a third-person shooter type with ground-based combat and boss sequences at the end of levels based on Kid Icarus, an abandoned Nintendo IP at the time. Sakurai took it upon himself to write the entire script out alone. In this sense, he didn't have to try and explain his thoughts to another writer and ultimately made it much easier for any tweaks he wanted to the story. He didn't want a basic win every time hero shooter, so instead made sure to balance out everything from the story to the gameplay, which the decision to not rely so much on cutscenes and instead focus on the characters' personalities and dialogue throughout the entire game makes it feel so much more immersive to the player. Hearing Pit and Palutena go back and forth is such an amazing change of pace for the game, and it just adds such a fun aspect to it. Design-wise of the game, the art style took inspiration from Japanese manga, and as for the controls, this is where great deals of struggle would appear. I see many people online complain about how the game would make their hands cramp, and of course, some humans were built with bigger hands, but Sakurai went on to say in an interview, "If there are players who say that it makes their hand tired, that's because you're applying too much force." Sakurai wanted to keep the game open for anyone to play. Using too many controls would sadly result in a barrier for beginner players, and possibly more hand cramps. The amount of options and ability the user has to design the controls to their liking is a big plus when it comes to the gameplay. Personally, I never had an issue when it came to aiming with the stylus and using the circle pad, but then again, I'm right-handed, and for those that were left-handed, the ability to flip the controls was almost a decision that was left out. As for the music, Sakurai brought in composers who had contributed to the Super Smash Bros. Brawl soundtrack. The live orchestral music that was brought into the project was to match the themes going on whilst playing the game. The game is loosely based off of Greek mythology after all. Having the music be memorable and not clash with any dialogue was something very important when it came to the soundtrack. The soundtrack alone would go on to receive high appraisal from many online writers, including Julius Acero of VGM Online, with a 5-star rating, calling it the best modern Nintendo soundtrack. Of course, this was back in 2012, but I mean, this soundtrack is a damn good one, so this statement could still stand true. The game would be delayed by a year and finally released on March 22nd, 2012. Kid Icarus Uprising would soon begin to receive high ratings from online game reviewers. The game was so good, it managed to boost sales of the 3DS during the game's launch. But this was 10 years ago, and Kid Icarus Uprising seems to be underrated considering there are still many out there that have not been able to play it. We've gone through the entire 3DS family, the Wii U, and now we're in the lifespan of the Switch, so Where's it at, Nintendo? The fans are waiting for a new Kid Icarus. Well, as for the man who carried the last game on his back, Masahiro Sakurai, in a recent interview with 4Gamer, when asked about aspirations for 2022 and a message for the readers, Sakurai ends the interview by saying, "I have no particular aspirations to let you know. It will take time to do anything, so I think it's best to forget about me for a while." After the most recent 89 playable characters Super Smash Bros., I think it's safe to say that Sakurai is taking a pretty big break from anything. Hell, even on the 9th anniversary of the game, Sakurai tweeted out that there are many requests for sequels and remakes, but it will be difficult. Ellipses. I think the best route Nintendo could take for the Kid Icarus series would be to port it to the Switch. It would allow everyone that wasn't able to play through the 3DS title a chance to have a much better experience on a better console. Witnessing Pit on a bigger screen would be astonishing to see. Better graphics, a possibly better control system that everyone universally could like. Hell, even online would be such a great thing to play with. Porting a game like this seems like it would only be half the work. Not having to come up with an entirely new game and just upgrading old assets could be an obvious quick buck for Nintendo. After all, they do it time and time again and people continue to throw money at them. Not even in a disheartening way either. Many of the fans just want something to come from Kid Icarus. Once again, it has been 10 years and the game would be perfect for the Switch. But even if we don't get any good news on a game anytime soon, Hades did say he'd be revived in 25 years.